They turned me into a stranger in my own home. That was the first sentence that popped into my head every morning when I woke up. House number 17 on this small street used to be my greatest pride. I, Elena Ramirez, had spent nearly 30 years saving up, pinching every penny from my job at the tailor shop to buy it. These walls were once filled with family laughter, with simple but warm meals. I used to believe this would be where I'd rest in my old age, the last place my heart would find peace. Then 2 years ago, my daughter, Camila, along with her husband, Diego, and their 2 young children, moved in. "Mom, we'll just stay for a little while. We'll move out once we're stable," Camilla had said, her eyes pleading. What mother's heart wouldn't soften at the sight of her children and grandchildren struggling? I nodded, opened my arms, thinking I was doing the right thing, helping my family through a hard time. But that little while quickly turned into an invisible prison. They brought their furniture, and then, bit by bit, took over my space and my life. The living room was filled with the loud noise of the TV, the kitchen always messy with pots and pans they never washed. Even the bedroom I had dreamed of when I bought this house, the oak bed, the window facing the rose garden I planted with my own hands, gradually became theirs. I was pushed down into the small room on the ground floor, which used to be a storage room for old things. I told myself, it's okay, it's family. As long as I have the strength, I'll help. But deep down, I knew things were slipping out of control. The day Camilla handed me a piece of paper, a work schedule filled with tiny letters, I finally understood. They didn't see me as a mother, as a grandmother, but as an unpaid maid. "Mom, wake up at 6 a.m., prepare breakfast, do the laundry, clean up, cook lunch, pick up the kids in the afternoon, cook again at night. You can only rest at 11 p.m. Camilla read the schedule in a firm voice, as if she were assigning tasks to an employee. I held the paper, my hand trembling. My house, my family. But I stood there, in my familiar living room, feeling like a stranger, with no right to speak. And so, the new chapter of my life began. Not with the peace of old age, but with ruthless abuse. A chapter I never thought I would have to write. But I must tell it, so that everyone knows. Even in the darkness, there is a way to reclaim the light for yourself. I still remember that day clearly. The morning was so hot, it felt like it was suffocating every breath. Camilla came down the stairs, a stack of printed papers in her hand. She sat down at the kitchen table, tapped her finger on the first page, and said nonchalantly, "Mom, to make our house run more efficiently, I've prepared a work schedule. From now on, you will follow this schedule exactly." I took it. The dense lines of text were like invisible chains. 6 a.m., wake up and prepare breakfast. 7 a.m., do laundry. 9 a.m., clean the living room. 11:30 a.m., cook lunch. 1 p.m., take the kids to their extra classes. 3 p.m., go to the market, clean the kitchen. 6 p.m., cook dinner. 8 p.m., bathe the grandchildren, feed them, do more laundry. 11 p.m., wash the dishes, lock the doors. Only then can you rest. I read to the end, my hand shaking violently. Not for one day, not for 1 week, but a fixed schedule for every day. I looked up, about to ask Camilla if she was mistaken, but her icy gaze stopped any words on my lips. Diego walked in, put his arm around his wife's shoulder, his voice half joking, half serious. "You should be happy, Mom. With a clear schedule, everyone knows their job. It's fair for the whole family." Fair? I wanted to laugh, but my throat tightened. all the work was piled onto my shoulders. Camilla stayed home doing nails online, Diego was out driving all the time, and I, at 67 years old, was turned into a servant. That night, I followed the schedule. I brought the dinner tray to the table, hearing Camilla call out, "Mom, remember to wash the kids' blanket too. It wet the bed last night." I lowered my head, picked up the wet blanket heavy with the smell of ammonia, my wrinkled hands trembling in the cold water. The sound of their laughter drifted from the living room, while I stood alone in the dim kitchen, exactly like the shadow of an anonymous maid. When night fell, after I had locked the doors and returned to the cramped storage room, I slumped onto the bed, gasping. This house, once my dream, was now just cold, confining walls. But deep inside, a small flame had been kindled. I began to ask myself, is this the fate I must accept, or do I still have the right to say no? I used to think that if I just endured a little, Camilla and Diego would realize they were going too far. But what happened next proved me wrong. Endurance didn't change them. It only made them push further, disrespect me more. That day, Diego knocked on my door, or rather, the small storage room I had been pushed into. He stood blocking the doorway, arms crossed over his chest, his gaze cold. "Mom, the master bedroom upstairs isn't suitable for you anymore. You know, we need space for our family. The kids are growing up. This small room, it's just right for you. You don't have much stuff anyway, right?" I choked. The room upstairs, my master bedroom, where I had laid every brick, hung every picture, spread lavender-scented sheets, was now treated like a commodity to be bartered. I looked at this small room. Low ceiling, damp walls. Almost no light. Before, I only used it to store cardboard boxes, winter clothes, a few old items. Now, it had become my sleeping place. I remember forcing a smile, trying to hold on to the last shred of dignity. If that's what you kids need, then I'll give it up. I can't forget Camilla's expression then. Not a hint of gratitude, just cold satisfaction, as if power had naturally fallen to her. In the following days, I gradually realized I had nothing left but my old, wrinkled hands. Camilla took my bank card. "You're old, Mom. Let me manage it for safety." "What if you get scammed?" she justified. I bit my lip, said nothing, just silently watched my pension check get withdrawn completely each month. $600, once my savings for old age, now became the budget for food, electricity, water, but all for them. "The whole family shares it, Mom. You're not losing out." Camilla said that many times, until it became an empty refrain. But I knew clearly. Every penny I spent wasn't to support myself, but for them to save for their future. They were even shameless enough to tell me directly, "You have to understand, Mom, we're young. We need to save up to buy our own house. Your pension is just enough for basic expenses, so consider it your fair contribution." Fair? I laughed silently. What fairness is there when an old woman like me has to work my fingers to the bone and pay for all four of them? The meals became proof of this upside-down reality. I cooked, served, and cleaned, while Camilla and Diego sat at the table, getting up as soon as they finished without even looking at me. They left dishes piled high, food scattered. The children cried. I soothed them. The children got sick. I stayed up all night. One time, I reminded Camilla, "Dear, I'm not young anymore. If you could, help me with a little housework." Camilla cut me off immediately, her voice shrill. "Mom, don't make things difficult for us. I'm busy with my online work. Diego's busy driving. You're home all day. What's wrong with you helping? I fell silent. I knew in their eyes I was no longer a mother, no longer the person who had raised them, but just a tool to be squeezed dry of energy and money. That night, I sat in the storage room, the dim yellow light casting my long shadow on the stained wall. I looked at my calloused hands, the overlapping wrinkles, and suddenly felt like a shadow myself, without a clear form. I thought of my late husband. He had been gone for 10 years, leaving me this house as a refuge. If he were alive, could he bear to see our own daughter and son-in-law treat me this way? I felt doubly betrayed, once by life, and once by my own flesh and blood. The deprivation wasn't just material. It seeped into every corner of my soul. I gradually lost my right to decide, lost my voice, lost even my faith in motherly love. Every morning, when the alarm rang, I told myself, just one more day, Elena. Maybe tomorrow they'll treat you differently. But tomorrow never came. Only endless work schedules, demands that never stopped. The breaking point came on a sweltering afternoon. I had just finished hanging the laundry when Diego called me into the living room. He threw the electricity bill on the table, his voice biting off each word. The electricity bill is too high this month, probably because you use too much. Try to save, Mom, because $600 pension isn't enough. From now on, turn off the lights early. Don't use the air conditioner so much. I was stunned. I didn't even have an air conditioner to use. My storage room didn't even have one. I only used a small yellow bulb to read old books, to feel less completely lost. And now they wanted to take away even that little bit of light. That night, I lay curled up on the iron bed, sweat drenching my shirt. Outside, Camilla and Diego were laughing and talking, the TV blaring, lights blazing on the upper floor. I realized they had taken from me not just my room, my money, but also my dignity. In the darkness, I whispered to myself, "Enough, Elena. If I don't stand up, they will take my soul too." That night, for the first time, I felt the small flame inside me burn stronger. It wasn't a flame of hatred, but the fragile light of resistance. I didn't know what I would do, but I knew. I couldn't let them take any more. And so, from within that dark room, a decision slowly formed. A decision that would change everything. I thought things had hit rock bottom, but fate seemed to want to test my endurance one more time. One humid afternoon, I was bustling in the kitchen when I heard the door open, followed by a voice that was familiar, yet foreign. "Elena, I'm here. Where's my room?" I looked up, almost dropping the pot in my hand. The woman who entered had a stately presence, colorful clothes, and a gleaming gold chain around her neck. It was Isabella, Diego's mother. No warning. Oh, not a single word of asking permission. Just a rolling suitcase, accompanied by Camilla's sneer as she walked in behind her. "Mom, from now on, my mother-in-law will be staying with us. We still have the living room. You can arrange it." I was frozen. The living room? That wasn't a bedroom. But before I could even react, Isabella had plopped down on the sofa, clapping her hands like a queen giving orders. "Elena, I'm tired. Make me a cup of hot tea with a slice of lemon. Oh, and add a little honey. Hurry up." I stood stunned, my apron damp with sweat. Camilla looked at me, her eyes signaling, "Don't argue, Mom. Just serve her." In the following days, Isabella's presence turned the already suffocating house into a living hell. She acted as if everything belonged to her. She made me wash her clothes separately, not to be put in the machine with anyone else's. She demanded a special diet, organic vegetables, expensive fresh meat, wine in the evening. At every meal, she complained, "Too salty, too bland. You're this old and still such a bad cook?" I bit my lip, swallowed my tears, and silently complied. But her every word was like a knife cutting into me. I remembered my husband, remembered the years we worked hard together for this home. Now I had become a servant in my own sanctuary. The climax came on a Saturday morning. I held my wallet, which had only a few coins left after paying the utility bills. Isabella sat smugly at the dining table, her voice sharp. "Elena, when you go to the supermarket today, buy me some French cheese and a few bottles of red wine. Remember to get some cantaloupe, the imported kind." I swallowed hard, whispering, "I'm sorry, I don't have any money left. The pension for this month is all gone on electricity, water, and daily groceries." A second of silence. Then the screech of a chair being pushed back, and Diego roared, "What game are you playing, Mom? You can't even afford a little food for my mother? You're too selfish." Camilla crossed her arms, adding fuel to the fire. "How could you disappoint my mother-in-law like this? Do you expect her to pay for it herself?" I stood silently, my vision blurring. I had no tears left to cry. In my heart, there was only a suffocating shame. That night, I lay in the storage room, my back to the moldy wall, listening to Isabella's loud laughter upstairs, the clinking of glasses. I understood that if this continued, I would be completely crushed. Not just my body, but my soul. But then, unexpectedly, a soft knock came at the door. I opened it to see Clara, my neighbor, standing there with a worried look. "Elena, I see you working all day with no rest. You have to tell me what's going on." For the first time in months, I burst into sobs. I told her everything about Camila, about Diego, and now about Isabella. Clara squeezed my hand tightly, her voice firm. "This isn't just unfair, Elena. This is elder abuse. You have rights, and you have to stand up." I looked into her eyes. In that moment, I saw a sliver of light, a small, fragile, but real way out. And in my heart, a vow echoed. "They have taken too much from me. Enough. It's time to fight back." That night, after Clara left, I sat stunned in the dark storage room. Her words still echoed in my head. "This is elder abuse, Elena. You have rights." The two words, "have rights," were like a beam of light piercing the thick fog that had surrounded me for so long. Ever since Camilla and Diego moved in, I had convinced myself that endurance was the only way to keep the family together. But now, an outsider had pointed straight at the truth. It wasn't sacrifice. It was being exploited. The next day, I looked at the house with different eyes. In the kitchen, Isabella ordered me to stack piles of dishes. She sat perched on a chair, sipping tea like a queen. I heard Camila nagging about money, Diego grumbling about work, the children wailing. It all blended into a deafening, chaotic noise that made my chest tighten. For the first time, I felt not just tired, but outraged. I asked myself, why do they have the right to impose like this? This is my house. Why have I let myself be treated like a lodger? In the evening, Clara knocked. She brought a hot cup of tea and placed it in my hands. "Elena, you have to think of yourself. Do you have the house papers? Whose name is on the deed?" I opened a drawer, took out the old file. The papers still bore my name, Elena Ramirez, sole owner. Seeing it, my heart pounded. Clara nodded, her voice firm. "See? They are just staying here. No one has the right to push you out of your house. The law is on your side." Those words were like a sharp knife cutting through the curtain of illusion. For so long, Camilla and Diego had threatened me. "We've lived here for 2 years. We have legal rights. If you don't accept it, you can leave." I had believed them, but now I realized it was just a dirty bluff. That night, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. I remembered every moment. My trembling hand signing over the bank card to my daughter, the satisfied look in Diego's eyes when he took the master bedroom, Isabella's sneer when she called me a stingy old woman. It was all like needles piercing my heart. But this time, I didn't just cry. I clutched the certificate of ownership in my hand. It felt like holding my last shield. The next day, Clara came again. She handed me a piece of paper with a phone number. "This is Richard Collins. He's a lawyer specializing in elder rights. If you want, call him." I took it, my hand shaking. In all my years, I never thought I'd need a lawyer to fight my own daughter. But seeing the trust in Clara's eyes, I knew. It was time. In the afternoon, Isabella gave another order. "Elena, when you go to the supermarket tomorrow, remember to buy more red wine. The Italian kind. Don't buy the cheap stuff. And buy 6 bottles this time." I took a deep breath and replied stiffly, "I'm sorry, Isabella. I have no more money. I can't." The air instantly froze. Diego slammed his hand on the table. "Mom, don't be defiant. You have to do it, you hear me?" Camilla frowned, her voice full of warning. "You should remember, Mom. We have rights here. If you don't cooperate, you can fend for yourself." I looked at each of their faces. There wasn't a trace of kinship in their eyes. Only appropriation. And strangely, instead of fear, I felt a strange strength rising within me. That night, when everyone was asleep, I quietly opened the drawer, took the phone number Clara had given me. I sat down, my hand trembling as I dialed each number. The phone rang, and then a deep, warm male voice answered. "Hello, Collins Law Office. How may I help you?" I swallowed hard, and in that moment, I knew I had just crossed a threshold I could never return from. I never thought I would have to live like this, sneaking around in the very house I had built with my own sweat and tears. But when I picked up the phone to call the lawyer's office, I knew it was the only way to get back a little dignity. The phone rang, and a steady, deep voice answered. "Richard Collins Law Office, this is he." I introduced myself, trembling. I am Elena Ramirez. I need help. I think I'm being abused in my own home." There was a short pause. Then he replied in a firm voice. "Please stay calm, Mrs. Ramirez. Tell me everything from the beginning. I will listen." And so, for the first time, I poured it all out. I told him about Camila, about Diego, about Isabella. I told him about the work schedule that was like a sentence, about my stolen pension, about the dark storage room, and all the intentional and unintentional insults. I heard my own voice break, but Richard didn't interrupt. He just listened, occasionally humming an acknowledgement, so I knew he was still there. Finally, he said, "You did the right thing by calling me. What you're describing isn't just unfair, it could constitute elder abuse. Do you have the ownership papers for the house?" I nodded, then realized he couldn't see me, so I quickly said, "Yes, it's all still in my name." "Good. Bring those documents with you. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., meet me at my office. Can you make it?" I hesitated. I was bound by Camilla's schedule every day. If I disappeared for a few hours, I would definitely be questioned. But then I remembered Clara's eyes, remembered her words. "You have to think of yourself," I whispered. "Yes, I'll be there." That night, I pretended everything was normal. Cleaned the kitchen, did the laundry, put the kids to bed. When Camilla and Diego were engrossed in the TV, I quietly prepared. I got the house ownership file ready, tucked inside my old Bible to hide it. I calculated the timing. Tomorrow morning, after dropping the kids at school, I would go to the market. Instead of going to the supermarket as usual, I would go straight to the lawyer's office. My heart pounded at the thought of being caught. But in my fear, I also felt a strange excitement. For the first time in months, I had a secret of my own, and it wasn't a secret of shame, but one that could save me. The next morning, I woke the kids, prepared breakfast as usual. Camila, in her silk pajamas, lazily came to the table and ordered, "Mom, remember to buy more beef and almond milk. Last time you bought the cheap kind." I forced a smile, nodding. In my heart, I whispered, "Today, everything will be different." After dropping the kids at school, I didn't go to the supermarket. I took a bus, clutching the file in my hand. The whole way, I looked out the window, watching the city flash by. I had lived here my whole life, but I had never felt so free. Richard's office was in a small building with gleaming glass doors. When I walked in, I was shaking so much I had to hold on to the reception desk. But as soon as he came out to greet me, his eyes calmed me. It was the look of someone who saw me as a person, not a tool. "Hello, Mrs. Ramirez. I'm Richard Collins. Please, have a seat." I handed him the file. He looked through it carefully, then smiled. "Perfect. This house belongs entirely to you. No one has the right to force you to give it up or take a single dollar from your pension without your consent." I listened, tears welling in my eyes. For months, I had lived in fear of the "we have legal rights" threat, and it turned out to be just a cheap lie. Richard wrote a few lines on a paper, then pushed it towards me. "This is a legal notice. You can give it to them. According to this, Isabella is an uninvited guest and must leave within 48 hours. Camilla and Diego have 30 days to decide, either pay rent and share expenses or move out." I looked at the paper, my hand trembling. A thin piece of paper, but it held all the strength I had lost. But what if they get angry? What if they do something to me? I asked nervously. Richard placed his hand on the table, his voice resolute. "You are not alone anymore. The law is here. I am here. If they threaten or harm you, call me or the police immediately." In that moment, I felt my chest lighten. I was no longer a bird trapped in a cage. I could fly, not because of anyone else, but because of the strength the law had given me. Leaving the office, I felt my feet stand firmer than ever. I held the file and the legal notice tightly, walking through the crowd, no longer feeling small. On the way home, I didn't stop at the supermarket. I just bought a small bouquet of flowers. For so long, the house had been flowerless, filled only with shouting and demands. I wanted to put this bouquet in my storage room. As a symbol, life was still here. When I returned, Camilla frowned. "What took you so long at the market, Mom? Where are the groceries?" I smiled slightly, hiding the papers in my pocket. "The market was very crowded today. I only bought a few things. But don't worry, there will be enough." That half-true answer made Camilla scowl, but she didn't ask further. As for me, for the first time in months, I felt I had a secret strong enough to fight back against it all. That night, I sat in the storage room, placed the bouquet on the table, and whispered, "Judgment Day is coming, Elena. Don't be afraid anymore. They have taken too much. Now it's time to take it back." I never thought, at my age, my heart could beat so fast. But that evening, as I stood alone in the storage room, staring at the legal notice from lawyer Richard Collins, every vein in my body seemed to ignite. It wasn't just a piece of paper. It was a weapon, a shield. Proof that I was no longer helpless. The sound of loud laughter and chatter drifted down from upstairs. Isabella was cackling, her voice demanding, "Camila, tell your mother-in-law to buy more wine at the supermarket tomorrow. I'm craving that expensive Italian kind." Diego chimed in. "Yeah, let Mom go tomorrow. She's free all day anyway." They all burst out laughing, the sound of glasses clinking. I sat downstairs, my hands gripping the file. For so many months I had swallowed my tears listening to those sounds. But today, they no longer made me choke. Today, they only fanned the flames inside me. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. The sky was still misty. I made myself a cup of coffee, something I had given up long ago because they needed to save money. I sat at the kitchen table, took a sip. The taste was bitter but clarifying. In front of me was the envelope with Richard's notice. I opened it again, reading every word over and over. Legal notice, Mrs. Isabella is not a legal resident and must leave the premises within 48 hours. Camilla and Diego have 30 days to choose. Either pay rent, $800, plus half of the living expenses, or vacate the house. Each word seemed etched into my mind. I took a deep breath, telling myself, "Today, Elena, you will get your voice back." In the morning, the whole family gathered in the living room. Isabella sat with her legs crossed, fanning herself, looking every bit the queen. Camilla was busy scrolling on her phone. Diego had his feet up, watching TV. I stood at the door, holding the papers. My heart was pounding like it wanted to jump out of my chest. But I walked in. "We need to talk." My voice came out, not as shaky as I'd thought. All three looked up, annoyed. Diego frowned. "Can't you see we're busy, Mom? If you have something to say it quick." I didn't answer right away. I walked to the table, put the papers down, and opened them. Then I looked straight into each of their faces. This is a legal notice from my lawyer. I am the sole legal owner of this house, and from today, things are going to change. The air grew thick. Camilla jumped up, snatched the paper, and skimmed it. Her face went pale, then flushed red with anger. "What is this? Are you kidding, Mom? You're calling a lawyer on your own daughter?" I looked straight into her eyes, my voice low and steady. "I'm not fighting you, dear. I'm fighting the abuse." Diego grabbed the paper from his wife, read it, and threw it down on the table. "Nonsense! We've lived here for 2 years. We have legal rights." I shook my head. "No. 2 years or 20 years, it doesn't matter. All the papers are in my name. You are just guests. And now you have to choose." Isabella sneered. "You old hag. Have you forgotten who's taking care of you? How will you manage on your own?" I took a deep breath, not letting the anger make me tremble. I have managed on my own my entire life, and I will continue to do so, without needing anyone to turn me into a servant in exchange for so-called care. Camilla started to cry, a half-real, half-fake sob. "You're so cruel, Mom. I just want what's best for you. If you do this, my whole family will be out on the street." I faltered for a second. The mother's heart in me ached. But then I remembered the nights I was forced to do laundry until late, my stolen pension, the disdainful look from my own daughter. I spoke slowly, each word carving into the air. If you want to stay, then pay rent and expenses. If not, the door is always open for you to leave. The decision is yours. The rage exploded. Diego roared, clenching his fists. Camilla clung to her husband, crying and cursing me. Isabella shot up, her face red, her voice shrill. Fine. You'll regret this. Don't think you can do anything just because you're a withered old woman. We won't leave so easily. I looked at them, a storm raging inside me. But beneath the fear, I felt a solid strength I had never known. I was no longer their puppet. I was the owner of this house. When all three stormed upstairs, slamming their doors, I sat down, exhaling hard. My body was shaking, sweat pouring, but my lips quirked into a small smile. I had done it. I had stood up. I looked out the window. The morning sky was clearer than ever. The first ray of sun entered the living room, illuminating the legal notice on the table. I knew that was the light of justice. The light I had been waiting for 2 long years, and this time I swore I would not let anyone take it away. I had thought that holding the legal notice, they would back down at least a little. But I was wrong. The moment I finished speaking, the fury of all three erupted like a cornered beast. Camilla was the first to react. She lunged at me, grabbing my arm, wailing as if she had lost everything. "How can you do this, Mom? It's like you're killing me. I'm your daughter. How can you be so heartless as to throw your own family out on the street?" Tears streamed down her cheeks, but her eyes flashed with anger and contempt. I was all too familiar with this tactic. Tears used for manipulation to make me soften. I clenched my hands, telling myself, "Don't forget the nights washing blankets. Don't forget eating leftover scraps. Don't forget the stolen pension." I looked straight at her, my voice firm. "Camilla, I am not kicking you out. I am only asking for fairness. If you want to stay, then pay rent and share the costs. If not, you choose your own path." Camilla cried louder, then collapsed onto the sofa like a tragic actress. Unable to stand his wife's tears, Diego shot up. He slammed his hand on the table, shattering a teacup. "Who will take care of you when you're sick? Who will take you to the hospital? You think outsiders will care?" Her every word was like a knife twisting into my deepest fear, the fear of abandonment. But instead of trembling, I laughed. A hoarse but powerful laugh. "You're wrong, Isabella. I've lived long enough to know being exploited by your own family is worse than being alone. I would rather be lonely with my dignity than live in this oppressive house." Isabella's face hardened, unable to find a reply. Seeing that threats didn't work, Camilla changed her tune. She wiped her tears, sniffling as she came to hug me. "Mom, I'm sorry. Maybe I went too far. But Mom, we're really struggling. Please give us more time. I promise, as soon as Diego finds a better paying job, we will pay you rent. You just have to wait." I almost softened. The mother's heart in me ached. But then I remembered. This wasn't the first time Camilla had made promises. Those promises always vanished, leaving only me with an ever-growing burden. I gently removed her hands, shaking my head. "Camilla, I gave you 2 years. 2 years to get stable, to grow up, to prove that you appreciate the person who gave birth to you. But you didn't. This time, there will not be another year, another month, or another week. 30 days. No more." Camilla stared, as if she couldn't believe her ears. The room fell into a heavy silence. I could hear the wall clock ticking, each tick like a countdown to an unavoidable battle. Diego sneered, his voice full of challenge. "Fine. 30 days. You think we'll just bow down? You will see the price of betraying your own blood." I held my head high, replying curtly, "I have already seen the price of endurance. Now it's your turn to pay the price for greed." As they stomped upstairs, their footsteps like thunder, I sat alone in the living room. My heart was still pounding, my hands still trembling slightly, but in my chest, a new pride was rising. I looked at the legal papers on the table, at the yellow light shining down, and thought to myself, this is no longer a prison. This is my house again, and I will protect it. Outside the window, darkness fell, but in my heart, there was a light brighter than ever. When I put the legal notice on the table, I knew I had just pulled back a long-held curtain. But I hadn't fully anticipated how intense the coming battle would be. 30 days, the time the law allowed them before they had to decide. Stay with responsibility or leave in bitterness. And during those 30 days, I had to face every tactic, from tears and empty promises to cold-blooded threats. The first week, Camilla suddenly changed completely. She woke up earlier than usual, came into the kitchen to help me cut vegetables, chattering away. "Mom, maybe I was wrong, but you know, we love you so much. We're family. Why do we need to bring lawyers into this?" I smiled, but didn't reply. I knew this was just the opening act, a familiar attempt to charm me. In the following days, she brought home flowers, bought pastries, and even had the kids run to hug me and whisper, "Grandma, I love you." My heart ached. I wanted to believe. But then I remembered. For the past 2 years, this love only appeared when they needed my money or my labor. I couldn't let myself soften again. When she realized sweet talk wasn't working, Camilla switched to an older weapon: tears. One evening, she sat in the living room, her face in her hands, sobbing. "I just want our family to be together, and yet you're pushing us out onto the street. Mom, I'm your flesh and blood. How can you be so cruel?" Diego stood nearby, arms crossed, his voice gruff. "See? Look at my wife. You're making her this miserable. Are you happy?" I swallowed, trying to keep my voice from shaking. "If you two really thought about this family, you wouldn't have made me carry everything. I gave you 2 years. As the 30 days neared their end, the pretense vanished. Diego no longer bothered to be civil. He came right up to my bed, his voice low and threatening. "If you kick us out, you will regret it. Who will protect you when you get sick? Who will take care of you in your old age? Don't think your neighbor or your lawyer will be there for you forever." I looked him straight in the eye. My heart was still pounding, but I didn't back down. "Diego, the only thing I regret is letting you trample on me for so long. I am not afraid of being alone. I am only afraid of continuing to be exploited." That sentence made him stop. For the first time, I saw his gaze waver. Not because I was stronger, but because he realized I was no longer easy prey. On the final day, the air in the house was so heavy I could almost hear the clock ticking through my veins. Isabella's suitcase was still sitting defiantly in the corner. Camilla and Diego were unusually silent.